So, let's get right to it. We've all seen it in the movies, right? The lone genius who walks into a casino and takes them for millions just by counting cards. But does that stuff actually work in the real world?
The answer is yes. It is a mathematical fact, but it is absolutely not the glamorous, easy money scheme you're picturing. And to really get it, we first have to understand why you're set up to lose from the very first hand. Okay, let's break this down. Before you can even think about beating the house, you got to accept one fundamental truth. The game is tilted against you from the start, and that's by design.
It all comes down to a concept called the house edge. You can think of it like a tiny built-in tax on every single bet you make. It's this small percentage that guarantees, over thousands and thousands of hands, the casino always comes out on top. This is the wall every single player is up against.
So what does that look like in practice? Let's say you are a perfect player. You make the absolute best mathematical decision on every single hand, a system known as basic strategy. Even then, your expected return is negative. You're still losing. You're just losing very, very slowly, at a rate of 0.42%.
And that's what's so fascinating. The first huge breakthrough in blackjack strategy from a guy named Roger Baldwin back in '56, it wasn't about winning. It was all about figuring out the math to simply lose less. For a long time, that was the absolute best anyone could do.
So if even playing perfectly is a losing game, how in the world do you actually flip that edge into your favor? Well, this is where the story gets really interesting.
First things first, let's just bust the biggest myth right now. Card counting is not a superpower. You do not need a photographic memory. The real method is way simpler and honestly, a lot smarter. It's about tracking just one simple thing. Are there more high cards or low cards left to be played?
And the system is actually pretty elegant. Here's how it works. Step 1. You assign a simple value. All the low cards, 2 through 6, they're worth +1. The high cards, 10s, face cards, aces, they're worth -1. Step 2. As the cards come out, you just keep a simple running tally in your head. And this is the key. Step 3. When that count gets high and positive, it means the deck is loaded with high cards, which is good for you. That's the moment the odds actually flip, and that's when you bet more.
And this right here, this is the goal. This amazing graph from Ed Thorpe, the guy who pioneered all this, shows it perfectly. You're basically just waiting. You're watching that count, that high-low index, and the second it crosses over from negative into positive territory, boom, you finally have the advantage. The whole game is just an exercise in patience, waiting for that one moment to strike.
Okay, so it's real, the math is proven, and the system is simple enough that anyone can learn it. So why isn't every smart person doing this? Well, because that was the clean theory. Now we're going to get into the brutal, messy reality.
First up, that advantage that you worked so hard to get. Let's talk about just how big or, how small it really is. It is definitely not the jackpot you're picturing.
In a pretty standard 4-deck game, a perfect card counter's total expected profit, over the long run, is just 0.3 of 1 cent for every dollar they bet. That's it. You're not winning big pots. You are grinding out fractions of a penny over and over again for thousands and thousands of hands.
And this brings us to what might be the hardest part of all, the psychological grind. Even when you technically have an edge over the house, you're not actually winning most of the time. In fact, most of the time you don't even have an advantage.
This chart just says it all. As a winning player, you spend 60% of your time playing at a disadvantage, just like everybody else at the table. You're making minimum bets, you're probably losing money slowly, and you're just waiting for that rare 40% window where the math finally, and just for a little while, swings in your favor. And of course, you're not playing in a bubble. The casinos know these systems exist, and they have spent decades figuring out how to shut you down.
And their number one weapon is devastatingly simple. They just add more decks. Take a look at this chart. In a single deck game, a card counter has a really strong edge. But once you get to a 4-deck game, that advantage is just absolutely crushed. It gets diluted all the way down to that microscopic fraction of a percent we were just talking about.
And let's say you overcome all of that, and you actually start to win consistently. Well, it's really important to know this. Counting cards in your head is not illegal. But casinos are private property. They can ask you to leave for any reason they want, no explanation needed.
So when you put this all together, what does a real card counter actually look like? What does it really take to pull this off?
Well, the myth is that lone genius getting rich quick. The reality? It's a disciplined professional who has a massive bankroll to survive the long, painful losing streaks.
They need nerves of steel to execute a perfect strategy while grinding out that tiny, tiny profit margin for hours and hours on end. So let's just boil it down. Here are the key takeaways. Yes, the math is 100% valid, but the advantage is razor thin. Those long losing streaks, they aren't just a risk, they are a statistical guarantee. You need incredible discipline, a lot of capital, and crazy emotional control. Really, it's not a scheme at all. It's a job. A very, very hard job.
Which leaves us with one final question to think about. When you really consider the immense psychological pressure, the flawless execution it requires, and the patience to just sit there and lose for hours on end, is successful card counting really a feat of intelligence? Or is it actually a brutal test of endurance?